Okay, so what you'll be needing to paint your color wheel will be, of course, a color wheel handout, a piece of newspaper underneath of that so you don't get any paint on the table. You'll need one of these yogurt containers with water in it, a paper towel, a good paintbrush, and then you'll be getting your paint palette, and you only get one of these, so you need to take care of your paint palette all quarter, keep it cleaned out and good to go. You'll need the 3 primary colors, so blue, red, and yellow, and then you need a little bit of black and white as well, and you can put those in their own sections there on your palette. Okay, so to start with, I'll just take some blue, and this is the blue section. Obviously it's labeled, and the middle part of this section is what is going to get painted with the regular color. So I'll paint this part blue. And I want to do a good job with this. Paint it completely, stay in the lines. You will get graded on neatness for your color wheel painting. There, I went outside the line a little bit, but I'll try and fix that. Okay, so I'm going to paint that section blue. Now it says paint the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors along with their tints and shades. Okay, tints are going to go on the top part. Shades are going to go on the inside part. All right, so to do a tint, I'm actually going to leave the blue in my brush. I'm going to use what's already in my brush to create a tint. All right, so I'm just going to take from the very corner of this white very carefully. I don't want to contaminate all the way. I'm just going to take a little bit from the corner and then use a little section of this inner well to mix a tint of blue. So tint is blue plus white, and then once I've got that mixed in, I'll go ahead and paint this section. So therefore I'm not wasting any paint by using what was already in my brush when I painted that blue section. And I don't need a whole lot to cover this section. But do make sure you get enough to paint it completely. If you're running dry, mix a little more. Okay, so now I want to paint a shade of blue. Now I do need to rinse my brush out because I don't want any white mixed in with the black for the blue shade. So get that mixed, rinsed out. I rinsed in my water, I don't know if you saw that. Swished it around so it could touch the bottoms, really get that paint out, and then use the paper towel to dry it off a little bit. Okay, so to make a blue shade, now I'm going to dip into my blue a little bit, create another little spot to mix here, get just a little bit of blue there, and then I'm going to dip my brush just a little bit into the black. You do not need to add much black to a color to make it a shade, otherwise it's basically just going to look black. With blue you can get by with adding a little bit more because it already is a darker color. It won't be overpowered quite as easily as some of the lighter colors, but you'll still notice it gets dark very quickly. Okay, so now I've painted my blue, my tint, and my shade. I will rinse my brush off again. Now you can imagine that you're going to do that for the primary colors first. So I go ahead and do the red and do the yellow because that's kind of the easiest place to start. But I'm going to skip now and I'm going to do a secondary color. So let's say I've got the yellow and the red painted, I'm going to do green now. So green is of course yellow and blue mixed together. So I'm going to start with some yellow. I'm going to use one of these other wells to make it. Always start with the lighter color and then add in the darker color. So now I'm going to take a little bit of blue from the edge so as not to contaminate it. Start with, might even be too much, start with a very, very little bit of blue because blue overpowers yellow very quickly and you want to try to get a mid-green. Okay, I'm going to need some more yellow in here. So from the edge, try not to contaminate the yellow too much, and then a little more blue in there. Okay, now we can see a green color. That still looks a little yellowish to me, so now I'll add a little more blue. It's much easier to add a little bit more blue than it is to add yellow to get it back. It's easier to add the darker gradually than it is to lighten it again. So maybe just a touch more. Add your blue very gradually till you think you got a pretty good green. All right, I think I'm gonna stop there. That looks like a pretty good green to me. So now, of course, I paint the middle section first. Okay, keep the paint that's in my brush and go from the edge to get some white. And just use this middle well here now to make my tint of green. You do want to take a little time to mix this with what's in your brush, otherwise it's going to be streaky when you paint it. So make sure it gets mixed pretty good. Paint the tint section. Okay, once again, after the tint, you're gonna need to rinse this really well in your water. Dry it on your paper towel. Now I need to make a shade. So again, I'm gonna take some of this green. Okay, find a little spot. Add just a little bit of black. Just dip my corner in it. Now if you do accidentally overwhelm it with black, add a little bit more of the color, so add a little more green. Because the shade is just a darker version of the color. You don't want them to look all black. There we go. They will look pretty dark though. Okay, so now I've got my green done. All right, so you do the same thing for orange and violet, because those are the other secondary colors. So when you make orange, you're gonna start with yellow and add the red in gradually until you get a good medium orange. And with the violet, you're gonna start with red and add the blue in until you get a good medium violet. Now for the tertiary colors, so like for blue-green, if you have enough of your secondary color left, like I have some green left here, I can use that to go ahead and mix my blue-green. If not, to make my blue-green, I would still start with yellow and add the blue in, but I just go a little further than I did with my green, of course, until it looks more blue. So I'm going to use what I have here. Now, of course, when I make my yellow-green, I'm going to have to start over, but that's okay. So for your blue-green, you're just looking to, it's kind of a teal color, so that's pretty good. Kind of halfway in between the blue and the green. Paint your main color. So the trick then when you get to these tertiary colors is just to make sure you mix enough that you can make the tint and the shade out of it. You don't need a ton, but you do need enough so you can fill it full. Okay, so I got that. So now I need to make a tint by getting a little bit of white, mixing it with what's in my brush. You know, after you do a few colors, you might have to rinse out your middle section here. Just get a wet paper towel and wipe it out so you can continue to use that. I'm add a little more white here. And make sure it's mixed really well with what's in my brush. Okay, paint my tint section. Okay, rinse out my brush, and then I'll just have the shade. So I get a little bit of my blue-green, and actually, since I'm going to be done with the blue-green, I can just leave it there and get a little bit of black. Mix it in. Since there wasn't a lot of blue-green left, and I won't need the color anymore after I make the shade. There we go. Now that one got pretty dark. You can tell. But the blue-green already was a dark color. But I might have added black a little too fast to that one. Okay, so that's kind of a taste of how you do it. This is what it should look like when you're all done. You get all the colors there. We do have some color wheels around the room, so if you want to keep that next to you to compare colors as you go, you can do that. When you're done for the day, Mrs. Reiner should show you how to wash the brushes out in the sink, so they're washed out really well. With your palette, I would go ahead and get a paper towel wet, and I'm gonna wipe up, whoops, spilling my black a little bit. So be careful not to do that. I'm gonna wipe up any of these spots that I'm done with. Any of these spots in the middle, I'd wipe out this really well too, so I need another paper towel. But once I do that, then the paints that I wanna save, now I'm gonna put this lid on it. Be careful and take good care of these lids, because they can crack and break easily, but if you take good care of them, put that lid on there. This should preserve your paints for tomorrow. Now, if it's a Friday when you're working, spray your palette a little bit with a spray bottle, so that will help protect your paints, keep them a little more moist. And make sure you store this flat in your locker. Don't let it be sitting on top of anything at an angle, because these paints will run together. Okay? Good luck with your color wheels.